JavaScript functions. So far, we discussed about the statements in JavaScript, and I hope you became familiar with it. Am I correct? Now let's see a few interesting things about functions. But before getting into our topic, let's see what a function is. A function is really just a reusable block of code. In JavaScript, we have many built-in functions, and other than that, we can also create our own functions which we would like to reuse. Okay, now we will see how to create a function. A function includes a function keyword, and it should contain the following things, which are function name, a parameter in parenthesis, and a block of code between curly braces. Well, now let's create one function. Look at this example. As stated earlier, to create a function, we must define it with a name. So, here it is, myCat. This is the name of the function, and this cat name is the parameter of this function, but supplying a parameter for a function is optional. It's up to us. So now we've created a function. Let's see how to call the function. To call this function, we should use the function name in a code statement. Let's call this function myCatWinter. This myCat is the name of the function, and as soon as we call this myCat function, this value winter will get assigned to this parameter catName. So now this parameter catName will hold the value winter. It's so simple, isn't it? Yes, and one more thing. We can also return a value that we processed in the function using return statement. I hope you are clear with the JavaScript functions. Now let's discuss a few important concepts of JavaScript programming in our upcoming tutorial. JavaScript browser events. You would have noticed that Ajax applications respond to the user's actions like button clicks, mouse clicks, page loads, and so on. But how does the script sense when to respond to something that has happened? Yes, here comes the role of browser events. Browser events are something when a user performs an action that you can respond to. An event occurs, such as from a mouse click, a keyboard, or anything else. JavaScript supports many browser events. Let's see what they are. See, these are all the different types of events that we have in JavaScript, and this column describes when it will occur. So just have a glance over this. Fine, now we know. What are the different events we have in JavaScript and where it occurs, right? Well, let's see how to make it work. Making these browser events to work is quite simple. We just need to drop them into the HTML. Do you understand? Well, let's take one example. Consider we would like to change the color of the web page when the user clicks it. So here we can use the events as attributes in the HTML elements. Look at this example. See, to change the background color with JavaScript, we need to set the BG color property. In JavaScript, we access the page using the document object, which supports the BG color property. This in turn lets us change the page color. So here, this line of code will change the page color to blue when the user clicks this page. It's so simple, isn't it? Yes, and we could also make this event to trigger some JavaScript functions when something happens, like on a mouse click or a button press, etc. It's entirely up to us. Well, let's see some more interesting concepts of JavaScript in our next tutorial. Working with buttons. As we saw earlier, Ajax applications usually wait for the user to do something before it fetches data from the server. But what's that doing something? Yeah, it's nothing really but triggering an event in the browser. Say, for example, clicking a button is an event. Like this, we have many HTML controls like listbox, textbox, radio button, and so on, each of which has its own events. We should know how to work with all these things. Fine. Now let's see how to link the button click with this JavaScript function with one example. See, in this example, we have one text field and button with the value read the text. And see here, we called the function handleText in the onClick event. So as soon as this user clicks this button, this function reads the text in the text field and displays it in the div tag. This line retrieves the text in the text field, and here we are assigning it to the div tag. This target div is the ID of the div tag. Here, this getElement by ID and inner HTML are the properties of JavaScript. We will be discussing this briefly in our upcoming tutorials. Now let's see how this script works. Let's enter something here. Now click this button. See? Here is our text. I hope you understand how to handle events in JavaScript now. Which would be the most concept in Ajax? Fine, so I hope we've discussed all the important concepts of JavaScript that we use in Ajax. Let's move on to our next tutorial. Creating an XML HTTP request object. Well, in this tutorial we are going to see how to create an XML HTTP request object, and I hope you know why we need to create it, right? Good. Through this object, only JavaScript communicates with the server. JavaScript has a built-in XML HTTP request object, so we can use it for Firefox, Safari and Opera, but Internet Explorer doesn't support this object. So, for Internet Explorer, we have to use a separate object called ActiveX object, and there is also a difference between IE 5.0 and IE 6.0 plus. IE stands for Internet Explorer. Well, don't worry, creating an XML HTTP request object is very simple. See, this is the code to create an XML HTTP request object for all browsers. Let's see how it works. As stated above, we are using JavaScript built-in function XML HTTP request to create an HTTP request object for Firefox, Safari and Opera. If the browser doesn't support this object, then it means the browser is Internet Explorer. So here we have created ActiveX object, and this is for the IE version 5.0 plus, and this is for the IE version 6.0 plus. If the browser doesn't support any of these objects, then it doesn't support Ajax. We could also use JavaScript, try and catch blocks for the same result. Look at this script. In JavaScript, if the statements within a try section fail, then the execution resumes from the corresponding catch block. Now let's see our script. Here first we are trying to create XML HTTP request using JavaScript built-in function. If it fails, then again we will try using ActiveX object. If this also fails, then again we will try using ActiveX object, Microsoft.xml HTTP. If all these conditions fail, then it will come here and execute this statement in the catch block. So that's all about the Ajax browser support script and what you need to do to use this code in your Ajax-enabled page. So you should be very familiar with this piece of script. Yes, have you got it? Good. So I hope you understand the importance of this script. Let's now move on to our next tutorial. Request for the web page. Well, in our previous tutorial, we learned how to create an XML HTTP request object, right? Good, and I hope you are clear with that. Now let's see how to request the web page using XML HTTP request object. To make a request, we need to use two methods of XML HTTP request object. They are open and send. Let's discuss them one by one. First, let's talk about open method. Actually, this open method is used to open the request to the server like this. Here, this rec is the XML HTTP request object, and this method open takes three parameters, where this first parameter is the HTTP request method, and it can either get or post or any other method, but that should be supported by our server. And one more thing is, always keep the method name capitalized, because some browsers, like Firefox, may not process the request. Fine. Now this second parameter is the URL of the server-side process. So in this case, we have assumed that the server-side processing is written in PHP, and it will be a file called somedata.php. but this server-side processing can be in any server-side language. Note, here we are not allowed to request to pages in the third-party domains due to some security issues. Well, this is our third and final parameter of this method. This is the optional parameter, and it is used to set the request as asynchronous. That is, if this parameter is set to true, then the execution of the JavaScript function will continue while the response of the server has not yet arrived. Well, now let's see something about the send method. This send method is used to send the data, which we would like to send to the server, but that data should be like a query string, like this. But to pass data using this send method, we have to change the MIME type of the request like this. Got it? Fine. Well, this is how we send requests to the server, but here we have used the get method. Similarly, we can also use the post method, request to the server, but it needs some modifications and some headers to be included. So, let's see how to do that in our next tutorial.